considering, considering script requirements. The user wants a 4,800-word script based on the title, Car Dealership Manager Kicks Out Sylvester Stallone, then learns he's the new owner, and asks for it to not include any numbering or headings. 4,800 words is a lot to include in a continuous narrative. It's essential to focus on the story, keeping it engaging, detailed, and reflective of the intriguing scenario. The dealership manager's misunderstanding of Stallone's identity, making it both humorous and engaging. Okay, I'll get started on creating that script. Planning the script. I need to craft a script about a car dealership manager kicking out Sylvester Stallone, only for the manager to later learn Stallone is the new owner. The script should flow as a dramatic narrative, with engaging dialogue and vivid descriptions. The user's request asks for exactly 4,800 words with no numbering or headings. I should focus on making the story engaging and vivid, with conflict and resolution. I'll need to ensure the word count is precise. Once I write, I can count the words, adjusting as needed to meet the target. Okay, let's get started. Planning the word count. I need to write exactly 4,800 words for the script, which is a hefty task. I'm thinking the best approach would be to divide it into manageable paragraphs. The script will include dialogues and descriptions, and I'll need to keep it continuous without headings or numbering. I'll keep track of the word count carefully as I go by scrutinizing the text in parts. I can use a manual method to approximate the word count while maintaining the narrative flow. It's all about producing that exact 4,800-word story. Reflecting on James's character and shifting dynamics. James has a strong belief in the order and authority of his dealership, but underneath his polished exterior lies an uncompromising nature. A visitor arrives at the dealership, exuding power and charisma, challenging James's values with his bold statements about resilience and leadership. At first, James dismisses the visitor's ideals as impractical, but a tension builds between their conflicting views. The situation escalates when a miscommunication leads to even more confrontation. The visitor pushes James further, challenging his leadership. James's transformation and realization. James, in an attempt to maintain order and control, impulsively kicks out the visitor, unaware of the massive shift awaiting him. The visitor, whom James believes is just a simple customer, turns out to be the new owner of Franklin Luxury Motors, Sylvester Stallone. This revelation shakes James, forcing him to reconsider his role and leadership style. As Stallone introduces a more innovative, empowering approach, James wrestles with his pride and control, realizing that growth often comes through disruption. His journey prompts self-reflection on leadership and adaptability. James' transformation and embracing change. After the upheaval caused by Stallone's arrival, James is confronted with the consequences of his actions. Stallone invites him to see leadership differently, emphasizing growth and embracing change. In the months to follow, James experiences a shift in perspective, recognizing that change brought about progress. As the dealership thrives, James learns the value of adapting and collaborating. Reflecting on his journey, he becomes a mentor, inspiring others to grow from challenges and push past their comfort zones, redefining his own understanding of leadership. Legacy of transformation. Stallone's leadership at Franklin Luxury Motors became a symbol of change and growth. The day he was unexpectedly dismissed transformed James, teaching him the importance of embracing innovation. Under Stallone's guidance, the dealership flourished, fostering creativity and new ideas. James learned to adapt and became a mentor, reshaping his role and vision for leadership. The story of their encounter lingered as a testament to the power of disruption, proving that even the most unexpected challenges can lead to immense opportunities for transformation. Embracing transformation and community. The dealership blossomed under new leadership, becoming a model of innovation in the industry. James, once resistant to change, found himself embracing the role of mentor and visionary. Conversations with employees like Marcus sparked fresh ideas, blending tradition with new technology. The dealership's transformation generated success, both in sales and employee morale. As ideas grew, James felt a renewed sense of purpose, understanding that success now meant community impact and collective growth. The ripple. It took more than a designer jacket or flashy watch to impress him. He prided himself on spotting who belonged and who didn't. So when a man in a worn leather jacket and jeans strolled in, Hartford's eyes narrowed. The man moved with a quiet confidence, hands in his pockets as he scanned the showroom floor. His dark sunglasses obscured most of his face, but there was something familiar about him. Hartford didn't care. This was clearly not their usual clientele. With an exaggerated sigh, he made his way over. "Sir, can I help you?" His tone was laced with thinly veiled condescension. The man barely glanced at him. "Just looking." Hartford smirked. "Right. Well, these cars aren't exactly just looking material. They're for serious buyers." The man finally turned his head slightly as if amused. "Yeah? Who says I'm not serious?" Hartford chuckled, shaking his head. "Look, buddy, we get all kinds here. Tourists, dreamers, guys who want to take selfies next to a Rolls-Royce, but this is a place for real buyers. If you're not here to purchase, I suggest you move along." The man exhaled, as if debating whether to respond. Instead, he continued his slow walk through the showroom. Hartford's patience wore thin. He stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "I don't think you heard me. I said..." "James!" A voice cut through the tension. Hartford turned to see his assistant manager, Laura, rushing toward them. Her face was pale, eyes wide, with recognition. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Handling business," Hartford replied, still facing the man. "This guy..." Laura grabbed his arm. "That's Sylvester Stallone." Hartford blinked. "What?" He let out a small, disbelieving laugh. "Yeah, right." But then, as if on cue, the man took off his sunglasses. There was no mistaking. Beyond the sharp jawline, the unmistakable voice, the legendary presence, Sylvester Stallone stood before him, cool as ever. Hartford's face drained of color. Oh my God." Stallone let the silence hang for a moment before smirking. "So, do I still gotta move along?" Laura shot Hartford a glare before turning to Stallone. "Mr. Stallone, I am so sorry about this." Stallone shrugged. "Nah, it's all right. Happens more than you think." He slid his sunglasses back on. "But, there's one thing you should probably know." Hartford swallowed hard. "Anything." "Absolutely, sir. What is it?" Stallone paused, letting the moment build. Then, with a casual nod, he dropped the bombshell. "I just bought this place." Silence. Hartford's breath hitched. What? Stallone pulled out his phone, scrolling for a second before turning the screen toward him. "See? Signed the paperwork this morning." Laura gasped. Several employees who had gathered nearby exchanged stunned glances. Hartford felt his knees go weak. You own the dealership?" Stallone smirked. "Yeah, and you?" "You just kicked out the new owner." A wave of sheer panic crashed over Hartford. His job, his career, had he just thrown it all away in under 5 minutes? "Mr. Stallone, I had no idea. If I had known..." Stallone raised a hand, stopping him. "That's the thing, man. You didn't know, but you assumed. And I gotta tell you, that's a bad habit for a guy in your position." Hartford opened his mouth, then shut it. He had spent years sizing up people, deciding who was worth his time and who wasn't, and now it had come back to bite him. The tension was unbearable. Then, unexpectedly, Stallone chuckled. "Look, I ain't here to fire people. I know how business works, but you might want to rethink how you treat people walking through that door." Hartford nodded frantically. "Absolutely, sir. Lesson learned." Stallone patted him on the shoulder, then turned to Laura. "Hey, Mind-giving. Me a tour? Figure I should get to know my own place. Laura beamed. Of course, Mr. Stallone. As they walked away, Hartford exhaled sharply, wiping the sweat from his brow. He had just dodged the biggest bullet of his career, but one thing was for sure, he would never, ever make that mistake again. As Laura guided Stallone through the showroom, Hartford stood frozen, still processing the humiliation he had just endured. His heart pounded as he watched employees whisper amongst themselves, throwing him wary glances. His authority, his reputation, it had all crumbled in seconds. He had prided himself on being the gatekeeper of this dealership, the one who separated serious buyers from time wasters. And yet, in his arrogance, he had nearly thrown out the man who now signed his paychecks. From a distance, Stallone's deep, gravelly voice carried through the showroom. So what's the best-selling model here? Laura, still visibly flustered, quickly gathered herself. The Bentleys do really well with our clientele, but the Ferraris bring in a lot of attention. The new SF90 Straight Ale is a favorite. Stallone nodded, running a hand over the sleek red Ferrari parked beside him. Beautiful machine. He looked over at a young salesman who had been lingering nearby, eager but hesitant to approach. Hey, kid, what's your name? The salesman straightened. Up immediately. Derek, sir? Derek Reynolds? Derek. Stallone smiled. You like working here? Yes, sir. It's been my dream to work around luxury cars. Good. Keep that passion. Stallone tapped the hood of the Ferrari. You know, I remember when I bought my first nice car. Back when I was struggling, I used to walk past showrooms like this wondering if I'd ever make it. He chuckled. And here we are. Derek nodded enthusiastically, hanging on to every word. That's incredible, sir. Hartford, still standing at a distance, felt the weight of Stallone's words like a direct hit. He had dismissed Stallone based on his appearance, completely ignorant of the fact that many great success stories start from nothing. Stallone turned back to Laura. Tell me, how's the staff treated here? Laura hesitated, glancing briefly at Hartford. We have a great team. Some of them might need to rethink their approach, though. Stallone smirked, clearly catching her meaning. Well, change is a good thing. He turned back to the showroom floor. In fact, I think we should make a few changes right now. The entire staff, including Hartford, perked up, sensing something big was coming. I want to make this place a little more inviting, Stallone said. I don't want people walking in here and feeling like they're being judged. You never know who's standing in front of you. He gave Hartford a pointed look. Could be a millionaire. Could be a guy with a dream who's gonna be one someday. Hartford swallowed hard, nodding rapidly. Absolutely, sir. I understand completely. Good. Stallone crossed his arms. Now tell me, James, what do you think we should do to make sure customers feel welcome? It was a test, a second chance. Hartford wasn't about to blow it. He took a deep breath. I think we need to change our approach. Less assumptions, more conversations. Make everyone feel like they belong here, whether they buy today or not. Stallone studied him for a moment, then nodded. I like that. He turned to Laura. Let's start there, and while we're at it, let's set up an event, open house style. Give people a reason to come in, check out the cars, maybe even take a test drive. Laura smiled. That's a great idea. Hartford, still reeling, nodded quickly. I'll get started on it right away. Stallone clapped him on the back. Good man. And James? Hartford turned, standing at full attention. Next time, don't judge a book by its cover. Hartford let out a nervous laugh. You got it, sir. Stallone grinned. All right, now let's sell some cars. With that, the tension in the room lifted and business resumed. Only now, the dealership had a new energy. Employees moved with a little more enthusiasm, and customers who walked in were greeted with genuine smiles instead of skeptical stares. Hartford, knew one thing for sure. This was no longer just a high-end dealership. Under Stallone's ownership, it was about to become something much bigger, and he was lucky to still be a part of it. As the day continued, word spread like wildfire throughout the dealership. Employees whispered among themselves, customers gawked from afar, and a few even tried sneaking pictures of Sylvester Stallone as he casually strolled through his newly acquired business. The reality of the situation was still sinking in for many, especially for James Hartford. He sat in his office staring blankly at his desk. His reflection was visible in the glass surface, and for the first time in years, he felt small. He had built his reputation on quick judgments, on deciding within seconds who was worth his time. Today, that philosophy had nearly cost him everything. The irony stung. The very industry that prided itself on appearances had just taught him a brutal lesson about looking past them. There was a knock at the door. He straightened up as Laura stepped inside. "You okay?" she asked, her tone softer than usual. Hartford exhaled. "I don't know. This morning I was running the show. Now I'm lucky to even be sitting here." Laura leaned against the door frame. "You're lucky, yeah, but not just because he didn't fire you. You have a chance to actually learn from this." Hartford scoffed. "You really think he's giving me a second chance?" She nodded. "I do. But it's up to, you whether you take it seriously." Before Hartford could respond, a voice came over the intercom. "James, Stallone wants to see you in the VIP lounge." His stomach twisted. Was this it? Was he about to be fired after all? He took a deep breath, straightened his tie, and left the office. When he entered the VIP lounge, he found Stallone sitting in one of the oversized leather chairs, sipping a coffee. The man exuded a level of cool that Hartford could only dream of. Stallone gestured toward the seat across from him. "Sit." Hartford obeyed. For a long moment, Stallone said nothing. He simply watched him, as if sizing him up. Then he set his coffee down and leaned forward. "So," Stallone began, "tell me something, James. How long you been in this business?" Hartford cleared his throat. 15 years, sir." "That's a long time." "Yes, sir." Stallone nodded. "You must have seen all kinds of people walk through those doors." Hartford hesitated, knowing exactly where this conversation was headed. "Yes, sir, I have." Stallone smirked. "And yet, when I walked in, you decided I didn't belong here." Hartford lowered his head. "I made a mistake." Stallone tilted his head. "Why?" Hartford hesitated. "Because I assumed you weren't a serious